Hey guys, so I have natural lighting, so I decided to make a video, so here we are. Today I'm going to be making a video about cosplay, because we need more of those, and I'm not very active on this channel. And today, as far as the subject on cosplay, I'm going to be talking about props. Now, for me, props can make or break a cosplay of mine, especially because sometimes when you can't exactly get the most accurate cosplay, a prop can really set you up for the best. One of the best examples for me, in my opinion, is I really like my Ryuko Matoi from Kill la Kill cosplay, but I don't think the cosplay would be as good as it is if I didn't have my scissor blade, because this thing is honestly a blessing, and this is my first prop, and I really think that it makes my Ryuko cosplay. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about what I used to make mine and some tactics to kind of keep things together more. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so to start off, I'm going to start talking about what I used to make my props. Almost all of my props are made out of foam core, which is a thin, sheety kind of thing that has a foam in the middle, and then it's papery cardboard on the outside, and it's really nice, it's really sturdy, it's pretty easy to cut, and when you layer it, it gets thick, and then it's really tough, and I use that a lot. All of my props most likely have foam core in them, especially with the big props like my scissor blade. This is actually foam core base and then paper that I use to cover it up, cover up the edges. And it's just really nice, and this stayed perfect throughout the entire convention that I was at about 2 weeks ago. So I really have a preference for foam core because it's easy to use, like I said, easy to cut, and it holds spray paint and doesn't get gross. And as you can see, this needs to be touched up, but this is the foam core. It doesn't get that gross and bubbly texture that sometimes when you do when you spray paint plastic or something like that, it kind of bubbles out. You know what I'm talking about? It looks gross. Foam core does not do that, and it's really nice. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is, to go along with foam core, spray painting. I absolutely despise painting, okay? I absolutely hate it. It gets on my fingers, it gets everywhere, it gets on the carpet if I paint on the carpet sometimes, and it's horrible, and it leaves a nasty smell afterwards. Let's just say I hate painting. But as far as spray painting goes, it's a little bit easier. It's almost mess-free as long as you don't get it on the ground, and it only takes about an hour to dry. I've used spray paint on all of my projects. Obviously, the scissor blade, I did not paint this by hand. I did make the scythe for my friend's Maka cosplay, which was mostly spray painted, and then the blade itself I had to paint. And all of the other parts for, say here's my gunslinger for my engineer cosplay that I made at 2 a.m. last night. I was down in the basement spray painting the pieces for this really late at night. But spray paint is a blessing, and it doesn't take that long, and you can do a lot at once, which is really nice. When you're doing something like the gunslinger that has a lot of little different pieces, being able to just go over all of them with spray paint takes little to no time, and then they all dry in about an hour, which is the only downside, is that it takes a little bit longer to dry. But spray paint is my best friend. You know, it's just overall a really good tool. Alright, so some of the props that I make are mostly for Team Fortress 2 because that's one of my big things right now. So I cosplay a lot from it. So one of the biggest props that I've had people kind of ask about is my sniper rifle prop, which is, okay, did I just hit my guitar? Hello. Is this, and it's a really kind of mediocre prop because it's my first gun prop and I haven't made one anything like this up until this point. So it's kind of it could have been better, but when people ask about it, they use, what did you use for the barrel? What's the scope made out of? The scope is a Voss water bottle that I spray painted kind of a silvery color and then went over and smudged with my fingers with some kind of green paint to tint it a little bit. And this, God, I forgot the name of it. The barrel is a wooden dowel that my dad gave me. So it's kind of a last minute thing considering I'm taking this to C2E2 and I needed some sort of prop for Sniper besides the Girardi, which I need to fix as well. But it's okay looking. And as far as this goes, the butt of the gun, and I'm going to talk about this too, it's pretty sturdy. Again, foam core, really nice. And everything holding up this scope and like pretty much everything else is foam core besides this and the barrel. So while I'm sitting here talking about the gun, I want to talk about the butt of the gun and the scissor blade, how they're made to kind of be three-dimensional. Unlike most of my props that I make, like take the bone saw here for example, this is pretty much 2D, which is accurate. But something like the wrench, where it's not really like three-dimensional, it's just kind of flat, more or less. The butt of my sniper rifle and my scissor blade are 3D. And how I did this was by first cutting out the form of the scissor blade. And here's my scissor blade form that is just cardboard, a bunch of little bits and pieces of cardboard glued together to give me something to trace around. And it's just really thin. And I had to cut out 2 of these to make both sides of the actual scissor blade. And then what I did was I took smaller pieces of foam core and started gluing them, like I'm going to use this form to kind of show you. I started gluing them off on this side of the scissor blade, like little pieces that stuck up. And then I laid the other half of the scissor blade on top of those and hot glued it down to give it that scissor effect, because I only did it on one side, not counting the handle, because the handle goes all the way around. But I only hot glued those pieces on one side of the scissor blade, so you can see this side is thicker, and then this side is thinner. I'm trying to kind of give you a comparison here. It's hard to tell because the thicker side's behind it, but this side is thinner, so it gave it a legitimate like scissor effect. Because as you know, in a pair of scissors, one side, the blade side, is thinner than the other side. I don't know what the other side is called. I only know the blade. So that's how I did the scissor, and that's how I made the butt of the gun, was just cutting out 2 halves of the actual shape and then gluing smaller pieces of foam core on top to make it three-dimensional. And I've found that this tactic works really well. And then I do cover up that because it looks really nasty when it's just sitting there bare. So I did take white paper, or you can probably take any paper you want. I just whites because I have a shitload of it. And then glued it down to cover up all that gross extra stuff that you can see if you don't cover it. The very last thing I'm going to talk about, which I'm going to talk about really quick because I don't want to make this video obnoxiously long, is fake blood. Now, a lot of cosplays, especially for video games and some animes, require some gross bloody props. Especially with me, it would be my bone saw for my medic cosplay, which is coated, the tip of it and the blade edge is coated in blood. One thing I want to point out about doing blood is it's not like bubbles, like it's not like splatted on there. It's going to be gross, it's going to be streaky, especially if it's being used as a weapon, then it's not going to be perfect little cute bubbles. But for my vest for medic, I did do the cutesy bubbles just to kind of drive away from the insane looking bone saw that I had made. So that's kind of besides the point. But it's not gonna be perfect bubbles. That's all I really have to say about that. Okay guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this little video about props. I will see you next time.